Hi, I'm Nuance Bro. I have a question about your position on the Iraq War.
What's up, guys? Nuance Bro checking in, and today we're here in Los Angeles, California at Politicon. Let's go interview some people, see what's going on. So why are we out here today?
I'm here at the Daily Wire interviewing some people and really trying to figure out what people believe.
Me too. So what are some issues that you're really passionate about personally?
The pro-Israel movement really has me going. Free speech, and then definitely being pro-life.
Pro-Israel. I know you used to be friends with Nicholas J. Fuentes, right?
I wouldn't say friends, but yeah, I definitely knew who he was.
So what do you think about some of his comments about Israel, like how they bombed the USS Liberty and things like that and stole nuclear technology, and how they're not necessarily like the friendliest ally to the United States?
Well, I would disagree with that. I'd say Israel is our greatest ally, and our president, who he worships, thinks so as well. Thank you.
She didn't like those questions. So why are we out here today?
Very interested in politics, what's going on in the country, history, political science, always have been. I'm very anti-immigrant. Very
Anti, so pro-immigration.
I'm pro-legal immigration. I'm against the separation policies. I'm against racism in all forms. I grew up in the Deep South, in a very racist environment.
Do you think that the policies of the Trump administration are racist in particular?
I think Trump is a blatant racist.
Sure. How so?
You look at his history in the real estate business, his wanting the death penalty for the young black men that were falsely accused of rape and murder in New York City, the whole Bertha thing with Obama, that was blatantly racist. It was. I mean, why would he choose to go after Obama for that issue?
Wasn't he honored by, I think, like Jesse Jackson or something for like something relating to the black community, like being a champion?
Who, Trump?
Yeah, I think so.
Not that I'm aware of it. It could have been. I mean, it could have been something in his long history that wasn't quite as awful as some of the other stuff that he's done. The discrimination in housing that he practiced in his business, and the things that he says, and the whole talking about blocking the brown people at the California border, not the people on the other side of the country.
Is that he said blocking the brown people?
He doesn't say that himself, but
Isn't that more of the case because the actual problem is at the southern border? We don't really have a ton of Canadians coming over en masse and millions of people?
Well, yeah, you can say that, yes.
I mean, it's a country of, 30 million people, modern economy up there, and then below it's not just Mexico, but literally every country underneath as well.
But the fact is that he is so passionate about that issue, and the fact is that he throws that out there to people to gin them up and to get them shouting and screaming and yelling, because I assure you, if it was 30,000 Canadians coming across, which it isn't, there wouldn't be the passion, there wouldn't be the gut hatred that is coming. And
is that necessarily racial though? Couldn't it have to do with better economic conditions, like people who coming from Canada, for example? I mean, they already have more of a welfare benefit state up in Canada. They don't really have much of an incentive to come down here. So if they did come here, it wouldn't necessarily be for benefits. It would be for, well, they already make money, or they think America's better. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, regardless, that people are coming for whatever reason. Canadians or Norwegians or anybody else would be coming to this country.
Wouldn't the same be able to be said for Norway? They have a much more generous welfare policy in Norway, and they're much richer as well.
I'm saying that the people, the reason so many people, and it's not the majority of the people, let's say the 34, 38%, maybe even 40% hardcore Trumpist, they're not motivated by the economics of people coming from across the southern border.
Isn't that one of the biggest issues, though, in an election, is who provides like a better vision for a better economy in the United States? Like jobs in the economy is like the number one issue for most Americans.
I'm referring to the immigration issue. You were saying that people wouldn't be upset.
But aren't they kind of tied together a little bit? Like, don't people associate one with the other?
I don't think so. I'm not sure people think. at that level. You know?
Why do you think the majority of people who oppose mass immigration or even illegal immigration is because they are racist?
A substantial number, yes.
Do you think it's most?
Most? Nah. Could be. Yeah.
I'm Nuance Bro. I have a question for James Carville. I liked your guys' discussion about free speech and all that, but your answer to Tucker's point was that, you know, if you don't like Google, go somewhere else or whatever. I'm just wondering how that logic doesn't also extend to, you know, racial matters, you know, with like the 1964 Civil Rights Act. Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, how come you don't just go to another lunch counter? I mean, Google is harder to run away from than some lunch counter in the middle of the country, so that's just my question. Yeah, I know. Yeah, so why doesn't that extend to free speech as well? That's the First Amendment, protected under the 14th Amendment.
That you cannot discriminate against somebody based on race, of which they call a suspect criteria. It has always been, it has been founded that if you have a restaurant, you're in interstate commerce, then Article 1, Section 8 applies to your business. So it is very clear as to why you can't do that.
No, that was the 64 Civil Rights Act that did that.
Law that was passed in 1964 that I firmly support and I think is a good law. I feel, and by the way, in terms of government interference, I think the only reason to deny, if you have a commercial establishment, deny somebody access is behavior. I'll take it one step further. I don't like shouting people out of restaurants. Now, that's not the government doing it, but I believe as a matter of law, you can't discriminate against somebody by race. I believe as a matter of good manners, that behavior should exclude, is the only reason that you should exclude someone from a public accommodation. So I'm very clear. But the 1964 law addressed that, addressed it to the Commerce Clause of the United States Constitution, and concluded that a public accommodation cannot discriminate against someone based on race. I 1,000% support that law.
Okay, so let me just very quickly. First of all, that's such a smart point, an interesting point, which I never thought of, and I wanted to steal my name, but
Go ahead.
But Google, and not just Google, but the constellation of tech companies really do control all communication in the country. So the power company can't decide to cut off your power if they don't like you. Do you know what I mean? The phone company can't decide to stop letting you make phone calls if they disagree with you. But these platforms, which increasingly are at the center of our public conversation, which have, by the way, congressional exemptions from the Decency Act to act as platforms, not media companies, kind of complicated, but it's a core question. They only operate because Congress is giving them a special carve-out. They can shut down public conversation, period. So actually, let's be totally honest, they're not quite private companies. We have an overriding interest in making sure that they don't discriminate. And we're not exercising that interest because everyone's paid off one way or the other. That's the truth.
Thank you.
By the way, guys, Rachel Maddow makes $7 million a year as an anchor on MSNBC. I live in poverty, so if you want to support this channel, please go to www.patreon.com/nuancebro to support the channel. Thank you. So for the theme song of Drake and Josh,
yes,
there was a recent video you did where you said it's not realize, it's realign.
It is realign.
Can we clarify that for the camera?
For this camera?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually realign, not realize. So could we, what upsets me even more is that when you see the closed captioning on the television, even they get it wrong.
They get it wrong.
Yeah. So so when it says realize.
So let's do the intro. Ready?
Okay.
It's gonna take some time to realign. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course, man.
Well done, everyone.
I see you have a little Trump diamond pin there with a Republican elephant also in diamonds. So why do you support Trump?
I support Trump because I believe that he will go down as one of the best presidents of the United States. Everything that he promised us in the campaign, he is fulfilling right now. I like that he's not a wussy man, and I'm not politically correct. I like that what he says he's going to do, he's going to do. He needs to build that wall. We need to get there. But I think that Trump is, I support, because he stands in his word. Look at Korea. Korea hasn't spoken to 70 years has had nothing with the United States. Now the remains of our Korean soldiers are coming.
They've had some correspondence, but like they had Madeleine Albright went over there.
Yeah, but did nothing. Nothing. I mean, they went over there. I mean, a lot of people talked about it, and Trump did it. Elise is doing it now, and I think that is what we need. That everything Trump said that to happen, it's actually happening right now. So.
And what are some big issues, like some policy agreements that you have with Trump specifically?
Policy agreements that he promised us to repeal and replace the insurance. He hasn't done it yet.
Obamacare, yeah.
And I want that wall. Is what I said is quit giving into the liberals. You promised us a wall because we need secure borders. Look what's coming right now. The caravan of all those people coming out there. I'm first generation from Mexico.
I want to, because we're going a bit on a rant. Yeah, I want to focus the questions a little bit. So you mentioned two things. You mentioned the repeal and replacing of Obamacare. You said he didn't do that. And you also mentioned the mall, which he hasn't really done the wall either. And he said Mexico is going to pay for it. There's no real indication that Mexico is going to pay for it yet. So those two things are things that haven't happened yet. But so like, what are some things that you agree with that you feel like he has done or is going to do?
Well, unemployment is the lowest ever since the record breaking.
Like 1960s. Yeah.
Right, okay, for 49 years I think it was. Unemployment for Latinos and blacks is record breaking. Unemployment for women is record breaking. It's booming everywhere you go. Everything says, job, hiring or whatever. So that to me, he has done all that. Supreme Court justices. That is very important to me. And that's why 82% of evangelical Christians voted for him. And that's exactly what he did. Just what he promised us.
Are you a fan of fiscal responsibility?
Yes.
And how do you think Trump's been doing on that?
He needs to tighten it up.
Because the deficit's, the biggest it's been in probably about 6 years.
But he did not. He only did, Obama doubled it and
well, not really. He kind of came off during the recession, so
right, okay, no excuses. No excuses.
Well, what do you mean excuses? Like
no.
It came out. The recession started under Bush, and then it went into Obama, and then the deficits went up because of decreased tax revenue.
Yeah, I think he needs to tighten it up. I think he's still spending like a rhino.
Do you think the tax cuts really helped with?
$275 every 2 weeks of my husband's paycheck.
Sure, but it increases the deficit. They didn't pay for it through any sort of budget cuts.
Right now, it's booming everywhere. We're making the federal money is getting more federal money from all of us. So it's
not really. I mean, they cut the taxes. The federal revenue is going to be less than it would be if they actually kept the previous tax policy.
That's a liberal talking point.
No, but that's like factual CBO numbers.
It is not because Trump.
Do you know what the tax revenue is going to be this year versus last year? It's a little bit higher, but it doesn't keep up with GDP growth.
It is. I mean, no one's ever had a better GDP growth than.
I'm saying the tax revenue, it doesn't keep up with GDP growth. The previous 2017, I think it was, what was it? I mean, it's only like $1 billion more than before, and we have like a $3 trillion like tax revenue.
I'm not going to say something that I'm not really too sure of, but I do know that is a liberal talking point, and I believe that's
a factual talking point.
I don't believe so. I don't believe so because Trump is a businessman and he's a smart businessman. So I know out of 500 companies, only.
No, I'm not even going to mention that.
And he didn't do it, but he's a smart businessman. He will not do something like that because he's losing money to be president because he loves his people.
Well, that's a debatable point, but it is. But I mean, I don't understand how it's a debatable talking point when these are CBO numbers as far as like projections.
But I don't believe that it is a. I believe that the numbers that the liberals throw at you.
But I mean, when we see the numbers coming in for the taxes, like surely then you'll agree. Like what the numbers are, right?
See the numbers as you're saying them, but not fake. I don't want fake stuff, real stuff, not something that the Washington Post wrote or something, or the Huffington Post, something that is actually coming out because people still don't want to give Trump any credit for the jobs right now. Obama did it. It took him, Obama started it. So unless I see something like that, I will take a look at it because that would be dumb of me to say, oh, heck to the no, right? So,
But I mean, he's acknowledged the budget deficit is a problem. That's why he had a cabinet meeting recently and told all of them to, have a decrease of 5% through all of the.
I did hear something like that, but not the way you're making it sound like, let's turn it around because he did this to the deficit. I know how the liberals work, and the liberals are trying to make.
How do you think the deficit grew so much?
It grew.
In a booming economy.
I don't know that answer. I don't know that answer, but I do know that he's too much of a businessman for him to have done it like that, because he knows what he's doing.
And we're here by the presidential vehicle. By the way, guys, if you like the content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and notification bell for future videos.
Hi, I'm Nuance Bro. I have a question about your position on the Iraq War, because you have in the past, made written articles about it, and I think even today you still say that you're in support of the Iraq War. So my question is, well, in the article that you wrote in 2005, you wrote that it's important to spread democracy and that empire is a duty, not a choice. And you said it would be good to put democracy into Iraq, but when you did your Islamic radical video and you picked all these different populations saying how radicalized they are, is it necessarily a good idea to democratize these areas and have them vote kind of like they did in the Gaza Strip and then elected Hamas?
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I think that I've become a lot more realist on this issue. No, I totally, I still think that the Iraq War didn't have to go how the Iraq War went, and I think that pulling out precipitously from Iraq was a huge foreign policy blunder on the part of the Obama administration. That if you actually wanted to form a more stable and lasting state there, you really did have to stay there for a longer period of time. I also am in agreement with the general hawkish foreign policy view that you can't run from the world and then expect the world to stay at your border. That's not the way that this works. With that said, I'm a lot less sanguine, I think, than I was in 2005 about the possibilities of implanting democracy in places like Iraq, when there was a lot of hope about that. I still think that there's a possibility, but it's not something that's going to take root overnight. I think there are a lot of us who are too optimistic about the possibility of that in 2005.
Twitter. Well, I don't know. When did I block you on Twitter?
A few months back. I don't
Let's find your Twitter handle right now.
Sure.
So you must have had to say something very, very threatening, because I've
never threatened anybody on Twitter.
I don't block people unless they send me threats. What is it? What is your Twitter handle?
NUANCEBRO.
Nuance Bro. Nuance Bro?
Yeah, I mean, you blocked me, so...
No, it's not. It would show up. I would just have to unblock you.
No, not nuanced, without the D.
Okay, nuance. All right, let's see. Nuance Bro. Okay, I'll unblock you right now. Let's have a conversation. Cool. Unblock. Sure. I make videos about politics and current events and stuff. Truth over propaganda. Facts over wishful thinking. All right, cool. Yeah. You're unblocked.
Cool.
Let's have a conversation.
Any speakers you're particularly excited to see?
Dennis Rodman, for sure, man. He's the number one, and probably the only one I really want to meet.
Do you think he's responsible for the peace we're starting to see in the Korean Peninsula?
I don't know that he's responsible, but he's definitely a catalyst, and he's definitely good energy, good vibes. I mean, who would have known such a savage rebounder and basketball player could be such a loving, peaceful person in the world? But I think he's definitely an element for sure.
So that's the Trump baby, but what are your thoughts about Trump, like the adult?
Oh, the fully grown Trump? I think he's underrated. I think he's overhated. I think he's a wild boy. He's a loose cannon. But overall, I think his impact on America and the world is a positive one. Make Earth great again.
What do you think about his child separation policy?
I think it's being misreported in the sense of, one, maybe 10 out of 12,000 people who come, or kids who come across the border, aren't with their parents. A lot of the people are not their parents. A lot of their parents are maybe not the greatest people. So the reason that they were separated originally, a lot of the original laws that were put into place were to stop human and child trafficking. There's a lot of rape going on. I know a lot of feminists care about rape. So, Huffington Post, that's liberal, did a study that 80% of women and young girls coming across the border are actually being raped. So you really got to think about these things. And also, Trump says it's to, not promote people coming across the border. So if you if you give people $20 million GoFundMes, then you're going to entice more kids to be raped and more people to come across the border. But if you make it so you separate, that's what you do when you go to jail. I think it's being misreported. I think we should look at it. We should look at the cages, but the way it's being reported is actually not helping kids. In my opinion, it's hurting kids. So I'm open to discuss, but I'm not open for people to just say, "What do you think?" You know, like, not saying you are, but people bring that up and think it's a big point. But it's like, you know how many kids get saved from being raped? A lot.
So the way you were talking about it was actually the way it was enforced during the Obama and Bush eras, as far as like, you know, if they suspected the parents of like trafficking, or they weren't the parents, or there was actual criminal involvement, like they brought drugs over the border or something, then they would separate them and they would arrest the parents and prosecute them. They would approach it from a criminal. The criminal way instead of the civil way. But what Trump did is the administration said crossing the border is a criminal act, so we're going to prosecute it not in a civil way, but a criminal way. So by default, they were separating all the children and the parents. What are your thoughts on that?
I think in general, if you're going to, and I understand people are in poverty, I have actually family members and people close to me that have had to come here from other countries in similar fashions, but if you're gonna bring your kid through that, I don't know that there's a crime that you could commit in the United States like that they wouldn't temporarily separate you from your child. So, you know, I'm open for a discussion about it, but I don't know that the flip side of keep the parents together. What if that parent's a murderer? What if they're a rapist?
He did reverse the policy. Now I think they actually do it the same way as they used to before. It's back to business as usual.
And I guarantee it's going to inspire more people to have their kids trafficked across the border. So he gave in to the pressure because he felt like it was the right thing to do. But I guarantee you that there's going to be hundreds upon thousands of kids that actually suffer because of that. I'm not saying to separate them, but just because someone brings their kid across the border, it doesn't mean they're a model parent who's fit to raise a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old or 6-year-old, especially with those rape rates. You really got to look at it and say, you know, is this someone who should keep their child? It's just like if you beat your kid in the United States, you don't get to stay with them.
By the way, guys, I forgot to film the outro to my video for Politicon, so I'm going to do that right now. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Support me on Patreon. Social media links are in the description box below, as well as merch. And I'll see you next time, bro.